Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Painted into the Corner. As Esad had mentioned previously, I have not been available due to having a child, and young Achilles has been keeping me quite busy raising her. So, lower effort content, but I hope you enjoy it. Today, I decided to crack open a box of the Iron Victory crew, and I'm going to paint one model, the test model, that will tell me if I should paint the rest of the crew the same way or a similar way. In this video, I will illustrate what I'm doing, the techniques I'm doing. I'm very lazy, so that's very important to remember. So here we have the base model unprimed, and I always like to prime it black. So there you go, prime it black. Then I will follow up by painting any exposed skin areas with Army Painter's Barbarian Flesh. It's important to paint the skin areas first because you need several coats to get an opaque layer, and then we're going to put a flesh wash over it because, once again, I am lazy. Once I have my first layer of flesh toned down, I'll go and I'll target the largest area, which will be the main color that will read on the model. In this case, I like using dark sea blue, and I like to do things in 3 layers. Once again, I'm lazy, so I'm not going to blend in things. We're just going to start off with a base layer of dark sea blue, and then we'll bump it up a little bit with some white or ivory once, and then one more time for the highest highlights. And we're going to hit every single area that I want to add dark sea blue to. So here we have the completed 3 layers of dark sea blue on the model's main fabric color. The next step will be picking out a complementary color. In this case, I'm going to be using my favorite color. Can you guess what it is? No? It is Screamer Pink. I love Screamer Pink. I use it on all of my Greyjoy models in conjunction with dark sea blue, and I think it works fantastically. And we're going to be doing the same thing, the 3-layer step, adding a little bit of white or ivory and pumping it up to make those highlights sing. Again, I'm not blending in anything, and if you can't remember, it's because I'm lazy, and this isn't for a competition piece. The idea is that when you look at it from a distance, you go, hey, that reads as such and such. It looks great. After completing the Screamer Pink layer, I like to move on to the leather layer. Again, we're going to do the 3-layer process. Normally, I would use Rhinox hide as my base from Citadel paints. Unfortunately, I don't have any, so I'm going to be using Huge Miniatures Lomox Brown for the first time. It's supposed to be a direct replacement for Rhinox hide. Let's see how it works. Once we put the first layer of Rhinox hide or Lomox Brown on all the leather, we follow up by highlighting the edges with Mournfang Brown from Citadel, one of my favorite colors they produce. After that, we pump the Mournfang Brown up slightly using ivory or white to get a slightly brighter color, lighter brown, and then only going very lightly and just touching certain areas to make the leather pop even more. If I had a large scabbard, like a Space Marine scabbard for instance, and I would use it to paint in scratches, but in this case, for me, these leather bands are too small, and I'm not using my nerd magnifying glasses to get precise detail. I'm looking through an iPhone and trying to paint this for you and for this video. I'm going to really quickly hit the handle or the haft of his axe with some birchwood paint, just to add a different color for interest. Now we're going to go and paint the armor. What makes Song of Ice and Fire such a great game is we get so many of these infantry trays, and we can absolutely use them as miniature paint palettes for metallic paints. Now there are several ways to paint metallics. You have the fancy non-metallic metal. I'm not going to do that. I know the basics and I have a basic understanding of how to do it, but for this video we're going to do a very rough and shoddy true metallic metal. Now how we do this is we start off with a base layer of steel color. In this instance, I'm using 2 thin coats plate armor to coat every single piece of his armor and weapon with it. Now what you're supposed to do after that is you're supposed to take a very thin down black paint and go in and highlight any of the details. So if you have 2 pieces of metal butting up against each other, you recess, shade with that black paint. I'm lazy. We're going to be using a black wash. We're going to be using the black wash from 2 thin coats. Now, once we've applied the black wash and it has dried, we're going to go back over and we're going to touch up the model with silver. I'm going to be using 2 thin coats. We're going to be using mithril steel, I believe it's what it's called. mithril silver, something like that. And we're just going to go over and we're going to hit the high areas with this. And it's really going to make things pop. Once you're done with that, and you wait for it to dry, you can do a very thin layer of black and then a very thin layer of brown over all of the metal plates. This helps bring it all together and tone it down a little bit. And that's how you get your rough and dirty true metallic metal. Off camera, not in this video, I quickly came in and painted his hair a dark gray. I just like gray on some models. I think it pops. I like to do variations with hair color to make the tray a little bit more visually interesting. And then I also did a quick flesh wash over the barbarian flesh that we did earlier, just to make the skin tone look more realistic. I do it because I'm lazy. You can obviously go a little bit deeper and paint up the layers from a dark red up to red, then flesh tone, etc., to really make things pop. But I feel like the flesh wash is just good enough for a tabletop standard miniature. Thank you so much for watching the first episode of Painted Into the Corner. I would love to know what you think. I have some models I want to paint up, and it's a great excuse to sit down, record, and shoot something out. Until the next time, this has been Jan. Thanks, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Have a great day. Bye.